Hello, my name is Muthoni. Welcome to another episode of Just Doing Life, the podcast, a space where we explore all the parts of life that we do not like to say out loud. After all, we are all just winging it. It's been a while. I know the last time I said that, I was like, oh, we're back, but that's not what happened. But I will not lie to you. I ended up posting something by mistake because I scheduled it and forgot to change it. Things have been happening. A lot has been happening in life. And I woke up. Actually, I didn't wake up. Last night, I was stewing over thoughts about different things. And one of the things was life has not been fun. Life has been insane the last couple of months. And I've been struggling. I've been waiting to get my spark back to be able to create. I've been struggling to create, and I decided that I'm going to do it exactly where I am. So here is to pushing forward and doing things while depressed, pushing forward and doing things while suicidal, regardless of what's happening in the world. Waking up and trying to see if the joy and the happiness will find us along the way. This is a new thing. I know today's a Monday. We usually don't post on Monday on the podcast. This is a new segment, a new series that's going to be part of the podcast. I recently introduced options, which is going to be every single Friday. So this is going to be our Monday podcast episode. And this one is inspired by radio. So early this year, I started working on radio, and things didn't work out the way they were meant to. And I think I had created a really, really cool show. So I was like, how do I take what I had created there and bring it here to the podcast? So technically, this will be like a radio show, sans music, once a week. And it's going to be every Monday where you come and we talk about current issues. Because with the other things that I do on the podcast, we usually just pick a topic and have a conversation around it. One is based off of my experiences, that's options. And the other one is I sit down with a guest and we pick a topic and have a conversation, a very in-depth conversation about that. So I was like, okay, let's do something that also touches on current issues. And that is how Just Doing Life a Little was born. It's not like a title or whatever. It's just going to be, it's still just doing life, but then each week we'll just be doing life a little differently. And yeah, that's how this particular segment was born. I've been feeling a little depressed, so this is a little life update. The depresso espresso, cut up with your girl. Actually, I think I've been. Someone said this to me, and I think it's true. I have functional depression, which means I can operate at times. This times it gets really bad to the point where I cannot operate, but functional depression means you can operate, you can show up in the world, you can do things, but then the moment you get back home, it's just over there waiting for you. The moment you're by yourself, it's over there waiting for you. And it's been like that. And I feel like the last couple of months, it's become worse. Like from last year, it's just been up or just stewing in the background, not very confrontational, but in the since June, I'd say. And I think it's because of all the stuff that's been happening in the country as well. There's been a lot of heaviness in stuff that's been happening in the country. So I think that also contributed to it. So you find yourself in like this really dark place that's always just waiting for you. So for me, it would be like I come to the office, we'll laugh all day, we'll make jokes, we'll have lunch, we'll do all the things. And then the moment you get back home, it just sets in. And sometimes it does not even wait for you to get inside the house. It's like the moment you're at the gate, it's like sometimes it's in the matatu on your ride home. Sometimes it's in the cab on your way home, where out of nowhere, there's like this cloud of sadness. It's just like, oh, it's finally just us, right? So that's where I've been. And I think the issue has been now the functionality of the functional depression has been refusing to function. So it's become edged to the max. I've been extremely suicidal. Um, hmm, I didn't think I was going to say that out loud, but yeah. There's been a lot of ideation around that as well, and it's just like, oof. There's sometimes you say things or you mention things like they're jokes, but deep down, you know you mean it. And yeah, so trying to walk through that. So I was talking to someone on Friday, today's Monday for context. I was talking to someone on Friday and I was telling them about all these feelings and all these things that I'm dealing with and how I feel like I no longer have any fight in me. I don't think there's something worth fighting for. I don't think there's any outcome that would make the fight worth it. And so we had like this really in-depth conversation and they were telling me about where they are and how they're feeling. And it's like the heaviness that we're dealing with as a country is insane. And then on top of that, there's the personal stuff. And then there's life stuff. And then there's family stuff. And then there's all these expectations, all these responsibilities. And sometimes it gets to a point where like you stop and you realize you're like alone. You don't really have anyone to depend on. For me, I know I have a bunch of people who lean on me, depend on me. But then when I need people, I often find myself alone. So it's that loneliness that kind of kicks in, and the realization of that can be so heavy. And then you stew in it a little too long and it just swallows you up. So we'll be talking life stuff. We'll be talking current issues. We'll be having conversations about different things, and then we'll also be picking a topic that is currently happening because you know about me. I'm still gonna talk about stuff that's really important to me, and share as much information as I can about every different little thingy. We're going to have different segments for this particular series. So one of them will be the life update. We'll just be talking about stuff about life, me personally, the feeling exhausted, the events that I go for, the things I'm learning about myself, the books I'm reading, all those things. And then we'll have a segment where I'll be putting you onto amazing Kenyan artists by introducing you to one new song each week by a Kenyan artist. They'll always be linked in the description or show notes, depending on where you're consuming this particular podcast from. And then there's a segment I used to do on the radio show every Wednesday that I want to bring here, and it was called Dope Women Doing Dope Shit. And I want to be able to highlight amazing women doing amazing work and just putting them on the forefront and sharing the work that they're doing. Because sometimes we know about certain people because we're in the same squares and same fields as them, or we run in the same circles. But then there's other people doing amazing things in other circles that we don't know. So I'll be trying to put you on. And then, of course, I've talked about like, it wouldn't be banter, but it's just more current issues. And then just putting my 2 cents on that as well, sharing my opinions. And then after that, we'll just be talking. We'll do like a fun fact, and then we get into the topic of the day or the thing that will be bringing us there on that day, depending on conversations that have been happening. This one's won't be named episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. No, that's not how this one will drop. But on this particular one, there's a lot of stuff that's been happening. So stick around for that particular conversation. For now, I'd like to talk about the song of the week. Yay, song of the week. Uh, the song of the week, it's a song I really, 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 really love. I sing it to heart. At one point, I was thinking that should I ever get married again, I'll probably sing this song at my next wedding. I still have like 2 more weddings in me, so don't judge me. I have like the next one will be wedding-ish. Like in the one where I do a wedding thingy, like the way the bride and the groom do like the dancing and the whatever. I'm gonna sing this song. So I'm starting to practice mapema. The song is called Kue, by Cerro. Um, what I love about this song, okay, one, I love Cerro as an artist. Cerro is beautiful. She has a beautiful voice. Her storytelling, one of her other songs that I really love is called Kasiokiwa Mitumba. Go look for it. So Kue is basically, I resonate with it on so many different levels. It's like someone who's afraid to love because they're afraid to get hurt. But then, like in the song, there's a part she even says, "I'm afraid that I'm going to love you," and then she says, "But I'm gonna try." And Kue means for you. Okay, so I'm gonna try for you. So basically, that's what Kue is about. It's gonna be linked in the show notes, again, or description box, depending on where you are consuming this. Also, if all those sound like a lot of things, you can go to my website, muthonigitao.com, and the part for this on the page that has this particular episode, all the information will be there. All the necessary links will definitely be there. So please make sure you check out Kue by Cerro. Yay! Again, a really, really beautiful song. And also there's like she sings in Zulu, I think, at some point. The other thing I love about Sarah is her mix in languages. Like she plays around with different languages. There's another song by her called Aheri. Now I just feel like I'm on a Cerro fangirling moment. But yeah, check out Kue. That's the song I was going to put you on. Come back next week for another song. And once you listen to this one and you have thoughts, you like it, what you like about it, please share and also tell other people about it, because we have amazing, amazing artists in this country. Let's get into a dope woman doing something dope this week. And this week I'm going to highlight Wanjeri Gakuru. Wanjeri is a filmmaker. And the reason I wanted to talk about her was on Friday evening, I went to watch a short film that she did that's called Transactions, and it's currently still showing at Unseen. So Friday was like the first world premiere, and it's going to be showing for the rest of the week. And each day after watching the film, there's a conversation with either people who made the film or in regards to the themes that are in the film. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's a really, really beautiful film. It did exactly what it needed to do. The story was beautiful, the acting was amazing. And it's just like it's also a story about a woman seeking joy on her own terms, and you know how I feel about joy. So it was a really, really beautiful film to sit down and watch. 750 bob, you can go to Unseen, watch Transactions. It's mostly happening from 7 p.m. in the evening, and then be a part of a conversation. The film is about like 20 minutes long, so it's it's a program that would take you like an hour. And you've probably seen her work before. Wanjeri has written in a lot of different cities. She's been a part of different projects that have gone on to represent Kenya to the world. If you've watched Supermodo, she was one of the writers on that. I believe she was also involved with Lusala. So like she's really good. And I would really appreciate if you took the time to actually go watch Transactions at Unseen. Unseen is in Kilimani, near Yaya Center, that area. For 750 bob. It's gonna be, I think, until the end of the week. So you just choose what day, depending on the conversation that's gonna be happening. So on Friday, when we watched the film, we had a conversation with the director, who was Wanjeri, and she walked us through how she's been writing this story, for how long, what inspired it, and all the stuff. I know yesterday, Sunday, there was a conversation with the actors in the film. I know there's also going to be a conversation with an intimacy coach, because in the film there is some intimacy stuff that happens. So I would most definitely recommend watching it. Like I said, beautiful, beautiful short film. Not going to take up a lot of your time, and you get to also interact with the creators of the film. That's a dope woman who needs your support. So go support her and support her work. Let's get it into the threads. In the threads is going to be a segment where we'll be talking about like conversations that are happening online, especially on Twitter, and the reflections around that. So the main theme for the last couple of months in Kenya in general has been how the Kenyan government has been a failure. And one of the conversations that's been happening that's been very, very loud in the last 2, 3 days, I'd like to say, is a story of 679 million Kenya shillings in cash that found its way to the UK, and a certain governor was allegedly trying to go and deposit it in a bank, and so Sidri, she's being held there, and Sidri Mara, the money was with her son or some crap like that. And the claims were that they're trying to build a hospital for Machakos residents. I was like, in the UK. So it's hilarious when you see stuff like that. And in my head, I'm trying to imagine just how much, like, 679 million Kenya shillings. There's someone who was saying, like, if you think about that in terms of like 1,000 shilling notes, because that's the highest denomination we have in the country, uh, that's like what's it called? A shipping container type. Like that would mean the money is like in like a shipping container of sorts, because that's a lot of money. If you think about how much money is lost to graft in this country, it's insane. Because also, why is someone traveling with so much money to a foreign country? Do we not have banks in Kenya? If you are trying to make transactions and stuff like that, um, is that not something that can be done through, like, especially because we live in a time where currency has changed. Currency is no longer physical cash. Currency can be so many different things. If you pay attention to the fact that there's someone somewhere who walks around with a watch that's worth 17 million, that's currency. So my question becomes like, what's the point of traveling with so much money if it's not for nefarious purposes? Like, because you can't tell me it's for good. That can't be for you're about to do something amazing, blah, blah. Secondly, something that I've noticed that no one has noticed or talked about is that there were claims that we needed to reprint money, and the tender was given to a company based in the UK. This is just me doing one and two together or something. I'm just saying, putting one and one together, it's very suspicious. And the interesting thing was, I saw this morning where someone was like, oh, this is the reason. So they touched, because this governor is a female governor, and so someone was over there saying that, oh, after the NYS scandal with Waiguru, and then now we have this one with Wavinya, if everything is true, this is why you don't have women in leadership. And I was like, oh yeah, because the men are doing so much better, right? The men who are wearing watches that are worth 17 million. We don't say, how come? It's like, when a woman fails, when a woman is in a position of power and she does something wrong, it becomes it's a female problem. It's the women who are the problem. But when it's men who are messing up and not doing their jobs and can't be held accountable, it's a them problem. They're seen as individuals. It's an individual when it's a man, but it's the whole gender when it's a woman. Because I'm like, this too, yeah, we're not saying what they've done is not bad. We're saying it's terrible, but that doesn't mean that then we don't have women who are doing amazing work. We still have women who are doing amazing work. That was quite an interesting thing, especially when I remember that whole um, tender being given to some company in the UK to print Kenyan money. And then now you hear there's like a shipping container that was found with, okay, not shipping, I don't know if it was a shipping container, but like there's 679 million in the possession of someone, and it's in actual physical cash. It becomes very suspicious. So I'm curious to see where the story goes. I guess maybe we'll find out come next week, or maybe we won't. We'll see what happens. Um, Another thing that happened this past week, there was a school that caught on fire, a dormitory caught on fire, and some kids are missing, right? So they're saying that the death toll right now is at 21. There's about 17 children who are still unaccounted for. And on top of that, there was also another child from another school who ended up dying whilst in school because the teacher forced them to walk 4 kilometers and they ended up collapsing. And it's insane that we live in a world where stuff like this can happen. That there've been so many dormitory fires in this country, and it doesn't add up that nothing has been done to fix that. To I don't know, that is fix the yeah, like how do you make sure that these things don't keep happening, right? Because it's not the first time that there's been a fire and kids end up dying. And the worst part is also they die when they're trying to run away to save their lives, but then most of them end up dying by the door because they're locked inside and the doors are locked from the outside. So I'm like, I'm trying to remember if, like, when I was in high school, if our doors also used to be locked from the outside, because I don't remember. I went to a boarding high school. I cannot remember, because I know I used to be among the first people to wake up. I know we used to lock the doors from the inside, but now I'm like, I don't know if someone would come around and also lock them from the outside, and then maybe I don't know. ours used to lock from the inside. So I don't know if maybe it's because of the age of these kids, and then now people decide to lock on the outside. But I don't understand. There's nothing in this world that makes sense for you to lock the doors from the outside, because even if someone is coming to harm the kids, they'd be coming from the outside. So if you're putting the lock where the person would be, it doesn't make sense. But it make more sense if the lock is on the inside, so that the people on the inside can feel safe because the locks are on the side they're in. So it's very sad. And to make matters worse, when government officials went to visit the school, they came with rice and beans. And parents are like, we've lost our children. What exactly do you want me to do with rice and beans? It doesn't make sense. Um, but it just goes to show that we are dealing with a government that doesn't care for us, because something else that happened yesterday was also very telling in terms of like they really do not care. Yesterday there's a young man who's been going around the country. His name is Morara Kebaso. He's been doing civic education around the country. And yesterday he found himself somewhere and he was talking to a crowd of people. And I don't know if the county, whatever, those people sent a fire truck to disrupt the crowd, which is a slap in the face, because they did not send a fire truck when the school was burning. No one sent a fire truck. And now it feels like they're doing these things intentionally. It's not a mistake that they sent a fire truck. They could have sent cops. They could have sent, I don't know, they could have even, because I'm imagining you can easily just send police officers and say, no, this gathering was not whatever, blah, blah, whatever it is, right? And just be like, yeah, this is unauthorized, so y'all can't be gathered here. But to send a fire truck 2 days after you were unable to actually send a fire truck to a school that needed a fire truck because it was on fire and children died, it really, really feels like a slap in the face. It's like they're rubbing it in your face proper. And that's extremely, extremely sad. And I saw that the school in Thika, where a young 8-year-old boy died after he was forced to walk for 4 kilometers. Apparently, when the parents went to the school, a teacher there said that, oh, she's not going to be allowed in the school. Allegedly, that she wouldn't be allowed in the school because she's no longer a parent there. And I was like, you can't tell me people are that evil. Like for real. That's that's scary to think that that's something someone would say to a parent after a parent has lost a child. It just it's the same thing on the other side, where parents are crying because they don't know where their kids are. And then what do? You bring them rice and beans and you go like, here you go. It really doesn't add up. It just goes to show how there's empathy is really lost. Like, people don't really have empathy, if we're being honest. So yeah, that's what's been happening on the online spaces, and it's extremely sad, if we're being honest. These times we're living in are just not it. Uh yeah, that's it's very, very concerning. That's it from the threads. That's yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to close off the sections, the different segments, so that we can move on to the next one, but don't worry about it. um okay, that I didn't expect to end that bit that heavily, but even the conversation we'll be having today is going to be on the heavier part, so we'll have to find a way to survive through the motions and the emotions and everything. Listen, I said we're doing it depressed, doing it suicidal, doing it because we're here. Okay. um Fun fact, this is, let's see if this can at least entertainment element. Woohoo, commercial break. So I wanna be sharing some fun facts. There's certain things that I learn, and they'll never do anything for me in life other than I'll enjoy the fact that I know those things. And I figured, like, one of the things I can do is I can also share some of the fun things that I learn with you. So a fun fact that I want to share with you today is the history of false lashes. And to an extent, I wish I was wearing some right now, but I'm not. As a makeup girly, I do enjoy my lashes once in a while. It's been a while since I wore full on lashes. But I had started this thing where I would only wear half a lash so that it has this like a nice wispy tail at the end. And yeah, so when I learned the history of eyelashes, it was quite interesting. And I was like, oh, so uh, anytime I get a chance to share this information with someone, I make sure to. So today, you're the someone I'm sharing this information with. Initially, false lashes were not called falsies, or they were not called false lashes. They were called cambrellas. And the person who invented false lashes, she was a lady of the night. She was a sex worker. And she invented them because she got tired of, after biashara, after finishing the business with people, that's after the G's, and the G's would get in her eyes. So she came up with something called cambrellas, which is what we currently call false lashes. And one, the fact that they were called cambrellas is, I love it. I'm like, I don't know why we changed the name. I think we should go back to calling them cambrellas. And two, I love that the person, like, falsies want to just invented so that our eyes just look wispier and stuff. It helps that that's what they do now. But like the thought of the story and where it started, totally love it. So now learn something new every day. Okay. This is the part where like we'd play a song if this was an actual radio show, but it's not. Let's talk about something that's very heavy for me on a personal note. One of the reasons why I've been spiraling the last couple of months, there was something that triggered this. So there's a story that broke last week about a woman, a French woman, whose husband was recruiting people through a website to come and rape her. And so she was being sexually assaulted. So he would drug her, she would be unconscious, and then he would bring strangers into the house and they would sexually assault her and leave. And he did this with over 90 men. And so now, the funniest part was even how it was discovered that he was doing this. He'd been married to her for 50 years. And the discovery happened because he was caught looking up a woman's skirt. Like he was doing something else, completely removed. And so he got caught. And then when they went to like his house or something, and they found tapes that he had. So he had actual tape recordings of his wife being sexually assaulted by the men he recruited, and he even had them labeled as sexual assaults. And one of the saddest parts about that entire thing was to think that 90 men showed up, 90 of them, saw an unconscious woman, and went ahead to assault her, with the husband in the room, and he's the one giving consent on her behalf. No one thought to ask if she was okay. No one thought to leave and call the cops. No one thought to report it. All of them, all 90 of them, showed up and did what they did and left. And so the trial is happening. And even again, we go back to the media and that thing I said about language. And the way they've been reporting about it has also been really, really sad because the focus has been her. Everyone knows her name. Everyone knows what she looks like. They keep saying, I remember even there was one article that says she seeks revenge. It's like, it's not revenge, it's justice. So the trial, she chose to have an open trial, a public trial, so that this men would be publicly placed out there, like they would be in the public. People would know, because with an open trial, that means their names will be out there, their images will be out there. And for her, this was like, yeah, people need to know these men so that, because you don't know, forget you don't know. You can't tell me that out of all these people, this was their first time doing this. No one is showing up and doing that, like, and it's like at their first time doing that. No, I don't believe that. So basically, the way the media has been reporting about it, they've been reporting like she's doing So there's ones who are like, oh, she's so brave for doing this or this, and again, everything surrounds, it keeps going back to her. And no one is talking about that man. No one is putting his photo everywhere. No one's putting a photo. All those men, no one's putting a photo of that. So it's become very evident that the narrative is being woven. So guys have taken it upon themselves online to go find these people's photos and actually post them because, well, it's not like the media is going to do it. So that's what's been happening. And closer to home, so there's an Olympian who just came back from the Olympics after winning, and her ex-boyfriend decided to light her on fire. He set her ablaze, and 75% of her body got burnt, and she was taken to the hospital, but she didn't survive. And he did this in front of her children. Um, and it sucks because literally a couple of months ago, at the beginning of this year, we were in the streets complaining about femicide. And I remember one of the pushbacks that we were getting when we were talking about femicide was that people kept saying that men also get killed, but by other men, right? When we were talking about femicide, we're talking about the fact that femicide is a crime that happens to women because they're women. And it's mostly perpetuated by people close to them. When we're looking at the statistics, most of them were killed by their husbands and boyfriends. And then after that, it was like, it's literally people in their closest vicinity, not strangers. So from that, and then coming to, there's this story about like the woman from France. And then in Nigeria, there was a young man who, again, um, went and sexually assaulted and killed someone who was their friend. And to make matters worse, this young man had already done that to someone else before, and the society and the friend and the family covered it up. He'd done the same to his sister, and it's so sad. The saddest part about that part was that the family knew and they covered it up. And I even saw someone make an argument that after the parents had lost a daughter, they didn't want to lose a son as well. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, so for them, their son was worth more than the daughter, clearly. And then there was also a 15, I believe it's 15-year-old boy who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl to close to death. She was hospitalized, she was bruised, he bit her, he sexually assaulted her. And the conversations around it, because we've gone back to this whole not all men conversation all over again, because any single time there's a conversation around women being harmed, there's always going to be the men who jump in and it's like, oh, it's not all men, it's not. We know it's not all men, but we'll still say men, because at no point, like, there's no man who comes with a sticker on their forehead that says this one is a rapist. There's no one who comes with a sticker on their forehead that says this one is a murderer. No, they don't. So when people go like, it's not all men, it's not that we don't know, we know. And then they also use this narrative where they're like, oh, what if it's it's someone you know, your brother, your father? I'm like, yeah, I would still want the same punishment to be bestowed upon them, because if you can do that to someone, you are a problem. You're part of the problem, and there's nothing that can be done to change the fact that that's what you are. One of the things I believe is that you cannot rehabilitate these people. It doesn't matter how many months, years they spend in jail. It really doesn't matter, because, and we've had this story so many times, most of them, the first day they're released, the first thing they do is look for someone to assault. That's the first thing they do, straight out of jail, straight out of whatever. First thing, that's what they do. So we have to accept that some people, truthfully, are not rehabilitatable, if that's a word. And we need to start having honest conversations. I saw a tweet, I think it was last week, where this woman was talking about how girls should not wear short shorts and like crop tops or whatever in the house when there's men around. And I kept thinking, it's like, why is it always that women are the ones who are expected to adjust their behavior when other people are the ones doing the terrible acts? Because if you say something like that, that tells me that you are bringing men who are harmful around your daughters. So maybe that's what needs to stop. You need to stop bringing um, pedophiles around your kids. You need to stop bringing people who've been accused of sexual assault, rapists around your children. But then instead of in that, people are just like, no, just tell your girls to not wear shorts. And even with this conversation that has been happening the past week, the same things keep coming up where women are being advised to carry pepper spray. Women are being told, oh, just go learn street, whatever defensive classes, whatnot, go take a class, walk with a penknife or something like that. You know, it would be easier for people to just stop raping. Men who commit these acts are never the ones who are asked to stop. It's women are just being told, no, just move differently, change your behavior, change the way you dress, start carrying extra things for protection. But no one is saying men need to stop raping women. Because it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how much I think I'm protecting myself. If someone's determined to sexually assault you, they'll do it. And it's also because when we think about things like rape culture, we don't pay attention to all the things that contribute to that. Because that woman who's saying girls should stop wearing shorts in the house, if something happens to their daughter who happens to wear shorts in the house, they'll say that the daughter caused it. Why? Because she wore shorts in the house, not because the man in there was an animal, not because that man is the problem. No, it'll be because she tempted him. That's what they like to say, right? Quote unquote. Oh, blah, blah, blah. So that is how we perpetuate rape culture ourselves, because instead of calling out the perpetrators, we start telling victims to do better, to do more. And that's not fair, because it doesn't matter. Like, if someone shows up to your house and they're determined to kill you and they have a gun, it doesn't matter if you hide under the beds, you jump on the roof, you do what, they will still try to do that. So it's the same thing. We have to start seeing these atrocities for what they are. They're not about, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to. It's usually not about sex, it's about power. And when we start making excuses for these people, you embolden them. I saw when people are saying that 15-year-old boy needs to face the full extent of the law, and then people are like, no, but he's just a boy. He's just like, it was premeditated. All that was planned out. It was not a crime of opportunity, a crime. No, it was planned out. He planned for all those things. But then you want us to pretend that it wasn't planned out, that it just so happens that he was just like, oh, oops. It wasn't a mistake. It is something he took time to plan. And so the punishment should fit the crime. Like I said, I personally do not believe you can rehabilitate a rapist. I don't think you can. I don't think that that's something you can do. So, death penalty. Me, I'm those ones for, hang them, please. Because I don't even think like life in prison would be enough. I don't know. It needs to be, when these crimes happen, the reason they keep happening is also because the punishment is not, it doesn't fit the crime. It hardly ever happens. When even when people report, people go back to victim blaming. The victims are the ones who are blamed. They're told to act better. They're asked questions like, what were you wearing? Why were you outside at night? Where were you going? And it shifts completely from the perpetrator of the crime and the focus is entirely on the victim. And it gets to a point where you don't want to have to relieve that over and over and over again. Most of sexual assault crimes are usually not reported. Most of them are not reported. It was interesting because in the story about the French woman, apparently they in the courtroom or something, they were requesting that instead of using the word rape, that they should use the word sex sin. What is that? Because they're trying to downplay the gravity and how excessive this crime is. Because you see, there's someone who said something, and I'm paraphrasing, and it was, when you say sex implies something very different. And that is why when other things happen, they have different names, because it's not really about sex. That's why it's not a sex sin, it's rape. That's why when it's kids, it's pedophilia. It has a different name because it has nothing to do. It's not about the sex. And when you start saying sex, you're trying to downplay the gravity and how heavy this crime is. And that's exactly what the court was trying to do in that particular scenario. But then I'm like, in the fact, like, how can a sane person sit there and hear the fact that this man recruited over 90 people who showed up at the house? And then they go like, okay, cool. I get that that's what they did, but can we not, I don't like the name we're using. Can we just like soften the term a bit? It's crude because that's how the crime, it's a crime, it's a crude crime. It's not a soft crime. It's not something soft. Rape is not something soft. It's not something we're like, oh, let's try smooth this over by just giving it a prettier name. It doesn't change what happened. Someone mentioned something else in regard to the fact that this lady had gone to doctors. She was struggling with memory loss, and she was like, stuff was happening because even one of the perpetrators was actually HIV positive. So, stuff happens when, things are as women. So she goes to a gyna, and this guy, the gynecologist, gaslit her, just said that, yeah, maybe it's an age thing, maybe it's what. The bias in the medical industry also played a part in her abuse continuing, because maybe it could have been stopped earlier if the doctor had just paid a bit more attention, had taken her a bit seriously, and didn't just play it off. It's just like, women and exaggerating things. We'll have that conversation on a completely different day, because the medical bias is also, that's a whole other conversation. But coming back home, I remember, I think it was last month, someone came across a Form 3 book, and they were talking about rape. And the way they talked about it, they talked about like, oh, it's because of how people dress. So if you dress modestly, you will not be raped. And it was very shocking that that's what's being taught in school. And when the person who came across it highlighted it, and then people started having a conversation online. And someone even wrote a letter to the they're called KICD, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development or something like that. And they wrote them a letter, and they said, this text is actually concerning. And these people wrote back. And when they wrote back, what they wrote back was insane, because they wrote back and they were just like, no, they doubled down. And then they even quoted a research from Nigeria that they had not read. I think they just went online and looked for some sort of research that would sort of agree with them. And the research that they quoted was talking about like, what is the cause of rape? And what the research had done is that talked to different people. And then at one point they mentioned that there's a couple of people who believe it's because of the way people dress, right? But then after collecting everything, if they had just gone to the end of it, they'd have realized that, like, in conclusion, that wasn't actually the conclusion that the researchers came to. But they just gaslit everyone, and they were saying, no, it's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with the text. But that's a problem, because if you start teaching young kids in school that if they think someone is quote unquote inappropriately dressed, that then they are allowed to have access, because that's also what it is. It's like you want access to people's bodies. Then you're starting to teach them from a very young age. Class 7 is what, 13 years old? 12, 13 there, I think. It doesn't make sense. Was it class 7? Form 3. And form 3 is also when, like, if you think about it, adolescence is kicking in. So what are we teaching people? So we also need to start paying attention to what are kids really being taught in school? And are you paying attention to what your children are being told in school, to the conversations that they're having with the people around them? Because that's concerning. What kind of media are they consuming? Because that's where the learning stems from. That's where it starts. So, yo, we live, we're living in times where the fear of existing as a woman just it hasn't. It becomes heightened by the day because of such things. Because now, when these conversations are happening online, what you see is you come and you see people now talking about it and the way they talk about it, and sometimes it's people you know and you're shocked. You're like, I did not know that that's what you believe, that you think if you see me in a miniskirt then that means you're allowed to do whatever to me, or that you get to decide. Like, it's like the fact that people still don't think that women have should have bodily autonomy is insane to me. That the sense of agency to our bodies is still not ours. And then the conversation is always being shut down with, oh, not all men, not all men, not all men. And I'll always go back to this thing where if someone sits down and they're talking about all the murderers and the people who've ever killed people, I'm not going to jump in and say, oh, it's not everyone who murders. Because the only time you feel the need to step in is because you're worried that you're going to be you're part of the problem. So if the shoe doesn't fit, I don't understand why you're feeling jumpy. Why are you wearing it? And also, when people now come with their whataboutism, where it's like, what about men? Men are also not safe from other men. So we do agree that the problem is men. Because you're like, oh yeah, even us without okay. It's from. And if the only time you bring up men's issues is when women are talking about issues that they're going through, your discussion is not about the issues. You just want to shut up women. That's what you want. And that's very sad. It's really sad that even when these things happen and there's like evidence and this conversations happening and people just still go and they're like, nah, but it's not all men, but it's not all this. Just because you're not doing it at the same degree doesn't mean you don't perpetuate rape culture. Rape culture is, I'll put like a nini on the screen about what rape culture entails. There's a lot of stuff before you even get to the actual assault itself. There's a lot of things that are part of rape culture. There was a story of an Indian doctor who was assaulted, and I believe she died, if I'm not wrong. And apparently the person who did that to her recorded it. And instead of um people talking about like how sad that was, these people were going men were going online in search of the videos of her assault because they wanted to go watch them. That's the kind of world we live in. That you, instead of thinking, wow, that's really violent, that's a terrible thing to do to someone, someone's like, oh, where's that video? I want to watch it. And people were apparently searching for it on porn sites. That's how insane that is. And when women talk about not being safe, someone goes like, you guys are just exaggerating. It's not an exaggeration. It's the truth. We're living in a world where women don't feel safe. Um, and it doesn't matter. It's from everyone. People, you don't walk down the street. Like, do you know how many of us would love to go for runs and evening walks, but we can't because we're girls? Every time I think about like, oh, I would really want to do some solo travel in my life. And then I remember I'm a girl and I'm like, yeah, never mind. And we keep hearing these stories, but we keep playing ignorant. We keep trying to downplay the effects. And what you're not realizing is we are traumatizing women over and over and over again because we keep hearing the same stories. And then you keep hearing, yeah, it was the husband, it was the boyfriend, it was this, it was that. At no point do you feel, oh, wow, safety at 100%. It could be your father. And people, when people talk about like, oh, what if it's your brother? What if, as if we've not had stories of the same, where it's a father doing it to their daughter, it's an uncle doing it to their niece. As in, it is all men. And there's something that I don't know if what the phrase is. We're gonna keep saying all men until it's no men. Okay? That's the thing. So every time you find yourself going like, not all men, maybe you should ask yourself why. Why are you triggered to go like, not all men? Interrogate that, because that will tell you more about yourself and what it is that you're feeling in that moment that's making you feel defensive. I will put the thing here, and I will also leave links below in case anyone needs any kind of help, that can assist for assistance of any kind, reporting. If you need care, I'll leave any details that I have. And we cannot keep quiet. We need to continue talking. We need to keep talking about femicide. We need to keep talking about rape. We need to keep talking about it because I cannot believe that we were in the streets in Jan and here we are months later. And do you know how painful it is to die, to like be burnt to death? You burn, like I'm imagining like that pain of like kama unachomekanga kidogo, just kidogo kidogo burning on the stove and it hurts so much. Now I'm imagining your entire body, 75%. Nah, it's we need to do better as a society. We need to stand in the gap for each other. We need to protect each other where we can. And people need to take responsibility. And I think also the law needs to take responsibility and they need to do what is necessary to make sure that when people are found guilty of these crimes, that they serve their sentences. It's you can't be seeing people and then they're just walking down the street. And the worst part, it's like it's not even just a Kenyan problem. Like the stories I've mentioned, we've talked about Nigeria, we've talked about um France. It's global. We've talked about India, women everywhere in the world, which then means men everywhere in the world are doing this. They're causing this kind of harm. So yeah, it is all men. It's all men until it's no men. And we can't downplay. We cannot downplay it. So if you're over there being like, we can't help you. Ask yourself why you're triggered. It's probably because you see those traits in yourself. And so you don't want to accept the fact that some of the things you do are part of rape culture because you want to seem like one of the good ones. But in truth, you also do things that cause harm to women. So yeah, that's it for today for this one. That's the conversation I wanted us to have. I'm gonna figure this out. So just give me some time so that I figure out the best way to go about this particular series. But I would want us to just have like the small segments, highlight a couple of things, talk about stuff that's happening. And then, we move on from there and see what's happening. Um, I think we're back now. I say I think because yeah, today I was able to sit here. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, but I'll do my best to do it tomorrow. We'll keep doing it. We'll have an options episode on Friday, and we have a sit down conversation with Mwende for Wednesday. So if you want to hear how that conversation went with Mwendengao, please make sure to check in on Wednesday for a conversation where we're talking about men and their enabling mothers. So that's going to be up on Wednesday. Again, on Friday, I will see you. On Friday, we'll be talking about grace and showing yourself grace. So I will see you then as well. Don't forget to follow us on social media at JDL, the podcast. That's on all platforms. apart from Twitter. On Twitter, you can use the hashtag. That's okay. You can find our podcast on all the platforms. I think we are on all of them by now. By now, we should be on all of them. I hope to be back here on Wednesday and Friday, and then back here again on Monday, where we'll do this all over again. If you have any suggestions on something that you feel could spice this up a little bit, I am very open to hearing that. Don't forget to check out Transactions. That's happening at Unseen. It's still happening, I think, every day this week, 7 p.m. Tickets are available on Mook, and I will leave all the details below. Tickets, whatever, everything will be linked down below. And also, I wanted to plug a play that's happening this coming weekend by Prevail Arts. It's called Sanctuary. It's featuring Martin Kigondu and Joyce Musoke. And they're both amazing actors. Martin is an amazing, amazing writer. So please do check that out. I think it's going to be happening at Alliance. Details will also be linked down in the show notes / description box, depending on where you are listening to this from. Thank you for spending this hour with me. This thing will be 1 hour. The whole idea is to have like a 1 hour show, sans music, or maybe with music. We'll figure it out. Um, but thank you for spending your time here. I will see you back here on Wednesday. And yeah, also don't forget to follow me on socials at I am Muthoni Gitao, and also check out my website, muthonigitao.com, to see all the two little things that we are doing slowly but surely. This is to doing it scared, doing it when we don't feel like it, doing it when unmotivated, doing it when exhausted, and everything in between. So to still being here and to still pushing through, we shall figure it out as we go.